it's not just sort of, so I'll repeat now. It's not just a question of, more trains and buses and more car services. We need to sort of change the way we think about transportation. I know, Steve, you're going to be talking about this a little bit in terms of cultural mindset. It's so important because it's not easy, depending on where you live in the state, what your needs are. Getting from here to there and back is not easy. And so we need to sort of change the way we think about transportation in terms of, how we use DDD budgets, how we use our own personal funds, how we use, fleets that exist, with our day program providers and others. We need to think about how we do school bus transportation differently. And so, I can tell you from our office's perspective, and, we hear a lot of different issues and a lot of different challenges families face, but sometimes people come to us with potential solutions, in terms of like school buses for students, why don't we have cameras in school buses? Why don't we have better communication protocols between families and drivers? For folks that live in more rural parts of the state, maybe the budgets, there should be different rates in DDD, because, to go pick someone up in a more remote location and then bring them back, it's a whole different set of challenges. It's a big time consumption issue. Someone recently suggested that the DDD should have a separate transportation budget because, folks with, more significant needs and higher tiers have larger budgets. Those with smaller tiers and smaller budgets have the same transportation needs, but they have less money to sort of spend on it. And folks, that use wheelchairs and maybe take longer time sort of, with transportation, maybe we need to revisit the rates and how folks like that are transported. So we really need to just think differently because again, we know there's not going to be one answer, one solution. It's going to be multiple solutions. And it's going to be public, it's going to be private, it's going to be a combination of both. And so I'm excited to be part of this conversation. My colleague Christine Baxter, who's here with me today, again, we get these questions, we get the challenges all the time, but we really need to sort of roll up our sleeves and try to find some solutions. And I think today's conversation is, I won't say a good start because we've had these starts before, but a good way to sort of continue the conversation, maybe jumpstart it. Again, we have a colleague here from Access Link, from Mercer, and then some family perspectives we can hear. And I hopefully, we'll have a good conversation today, and then we can take that conversation forward. So I'm glad everybody's here. I will point out we have our office's new office brochure here. It's relatively new, has a picture of Tina in it. If anyone wants information about what our office does, if you don't know about us, please reach out to us at any time through our website, through our email addresses. We're here to help, not just on transportation issues, but on all issues. So thank you.
Talk about the report.
Talk about the report?
Did you just submit your report?
Yeah, we just released our 2022 annual report. We didn't delve into transportation per se, but I would, anyone who would be willing to read it, we appreciate it. We always appreciate the feedback also. As you probably know, we try to write our reports a little differently than normal annual reports. We don't use it as an opportunity to sort of tout all the good things we did the year before, but really try to use it to sort of shine light on the challenges that still need to be addressed. This year, we have a couple things that we focus on. One is it's our 5th year anniversary. Our small but ambitious office has been around for 5 years. And so we think it's a good opportunity to sort of take stock in what's worked, what hasn't worked, what we can do better going forward. We also use it to sort of highlight the fact that it's also the 10-year anniversary of the Department of Children and Families taking responsibility for children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it provides us an opportunity there too to think about what's worked, that hasn't worked, and what we should be doing going forward. A big theme running through the report is, this whole notion of we have these persistent challenges. Transportation is one of them. Again, we didn't dive into that because that's not something we deal with on a day-to-day basis in our office. But we have these persistent challenges, and the idea is, despite good faith efforts, despite money thrown at these programs, and all the programs and stuff, things aren't working. And so, one of my favorite things is when in a hole, stop digging. And I think, some of these things we need to sort of pivot and think of different ways. And certainly transportation falls into that. What we've been doing, we've got, it works for some people, clearly doesn't work for a lot of people. And so we need to think differently and act differently. So thanks for the plug on the report. And with that, I'll turn you over to the next speaker. That's applause time.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Tamburello, the co-chair of the council, and as we approach this topic, we thought no better way to start off but by telling how different families have been affected by transportation challenges and how some of them have solved them. So, Yoko, you have the PowerPoint?
Yes.
And I'd like to start by inviting Bob to join me.
I'm Bob Daslick. I take public transportation to and from work. It's a challenge because it takes me an hour and 15 minutes to go a 20-minute distance if I could drive, because I have to take a half-hour bus trip from Glassboro to Woodbury, then wait 20 minutes for 30 minutes for my second bus that takes me over to the college. And because of that, I got involved in transportation advisory work, which is very interesting and fulfilling. And I hope that that will help in our improving transportation.
So Bob, one of the things that really impressed me about Bob when I talked to him, I was thinking of what families can I reach out to who have really good knowledge of transportation issues and solutions. The thing that really impressed me about Bob is he's become such an advocate for it both at the local and the state level. And I think it's really important to note that you live in a part of the state that is a little more rural, and he's in southern New Jersey, and there aren't as many transportation options as there are in the northern part of the state. So if we could just go to the very last, just go through the last couple slides there. The options are limited because there's no access link, and the paratransit system is consistent. And I think there's solutions on the next slide that Bob is actively working to see happen.
My screen shows the solution, but I think technology having a
Oh, all right, well, there are solutions that Bob sees, and here they are, yay. Increase fixed New Jersey transit routes, a more effective paratransit system. I think that's really a statewide issue, because I know in Bergen County, when I was working, we had a lot of issues with the consistency of the paratransit system, and coordinated transportation system for all individuals with disabilities. So we appreciate Bob telling his story, and most of all, we appreciate your advocacy.
I enjoy doing it, and I plan to do it as long as I can.
Great, thank you. I think it's Lily who is, it's Lily who's up next, and her mom, Gabrielle Bohan.
It's just me, no.
Right, but this is her mom.
Yes, I'm Lily's mom. That's basically how I'm known.
That is, right, I'm known as Michael's mom. It's just our identity. What I thought was really interesting about Lily's story is they came up with a very interesting solution. So I'll let you introduce Lily and what you guys did.
Okay, so in Lily's senior year at the College of New Jersey, she got an internship, a dream internship, with the Berlin Theater, which is part of the McCarter Theater down at Princeton. She was going to TCNJ, and the college did not provide transportation from the dorms, basically the college campus, over to Princeton. So we had to figure it out on our own. So the three choices that we looked at was you had Access Link, and you had New Jersey Transit, because there's a bus stop right on the campus. I don't know if you want to flip.
We're trying.
It's flipping.
We're having a flipping problem.
So Access Link, as a stagehand, its plays are done on weekends, and you have to work Sundays, Saturdays, very late at night. Access Link does not run that late in the evening. It was sparse on Saturdays, to be nice. And then Sundays, it was non-existent. So that really wasn't quite an option. And as we know, Access Link gives you the window of opportunity to get. And, she had to be at her job at a certain time, and she had to return to campus at a certain time because she still was taking classes. So it wasn't the most convenient. You want to try the next one if it's coming up? Maybe. All right, so Access Link didn't give us what we needed for that. So then we looked at the train schedule. Well, for her just to go from Ewing over to Princeton, which is about a 20-mile, no, I don't even think so. I think it's like an 11-mile drive. It was going to take her anywhere from an hour and 15 minutes to almost 2 hours. And honestly, I didn't want my daughter waiting at 11 o'clock at night down in Trenton for the bus or the train to pick her up by herself. And Lily is not really a great person. If the bus is supposed to be there at 10 o'clock, it's supposed to be there at 10 o'clock, and she does not deal with 10:01. So that wasn't really going to be a great solution. So talking to my support coordinator, we found out about attain and gain counseling. At that time, it was the only one offering a service to do Uber and Lyft. And Lily was familiar with those because we've used them in the past with her. So what we did was we got her signed up for that. Her father would order the Uber, talk to the driver because, bus can't be late, but Lily could be about 5-10 minutes late sometimes, and worked with that. He followed her through, and the trip took maybe less than a half hour back and forth without any hassles. What was good was attain and gain was paid through her DDD budget, so the only thing that cost us was the tips because you can't tip through that. So we labeled envelopes for her, so that she could give the Uber driver, the tip for it. Got to keep up that 5-star rating somehow. And it worked out very well for us. But it took a little bit of digging and a little bit of paperwork, but it was a great option. So thank you.
Thanks, that is a great example of a very unique. And now, we're still working on the PowerPoint here, but we're going to introduce Melanie Ayers, whose daughter Emma, and I will also preface by saying you are a South Jerseyan.
Oh, yes. I'm like really South Jersey. We are in Salem County, which is a very rural county. Like if you go out of my house and make a left, within a half mile, 3/4 of a mile, you're in the farmlands. You make a right, you're on the turnpike and 295 in Delaware. So we are really down south. But Emma, she is, and if you get that up, you'll see a picture of her. I talk about her all the time. She is a young lady with Down syndrome who has had a job at McDonald's for 6 years. And before COVID, we got her hooked up with Access Link because I was working in the office during the day and wasn't able to get her ride there. And so we got her hooked up. Times, it was a little difficult. Here she is. And she's got a couple jobs. So there's pictures of her at her office job and then her McDonald's job. And you can flip to the next one, so it'll be there by the time I talk about it. So anyway, she was taking Access Link, but it was difficult because sometimes the times were not available that I needed her to get there. She would either get to work like an hour and a half early or would be late. If she was a few minutes late, they understood, but sometimes couldn't get the right times that we needed. And I know at that time, if she was able to do like a full month, then we could get her on like a normal schedule and have it pre-done, but we couldn't always get the times that we needed for her to get on that recurring schedule. So even though she was 5 minutes away, it wasn't always convenient, and it wasn't, can just drop her off and she's there. The doctor's office is 15 minutes away in the next county over. And so we tried Access Link, but once COVID hit, I was now working from home. And since then, we've just been trying to figure out how to drive her between myself, my son, and, if my dad or somebody the grandparents would take her. The other option that she has is the Scoot Bus, which is our Salem County busing through the Office of Aging and Disability, and she takes that to her programming. The program does have a bus, which they do go pick up some people, but they want her to be a little bit more independent, and, you know, we have the Scoot Bus, which we all still arrange the rides, but she knows when they, you know, they give us a call, she's like, Mom, when are they coming? And she knows, so she's ready, waiting to go. Those times can be, you know, they say a few minutes, but sometimes it can be really early, sometimes it's a few minutes late. But for the most part, that's been working out well for us. In the beginning, it was a little bit difficult because they were changing contract and getting new bus drivers and things, so it was a little hectic in the beginning of starting the Scoot Bus, but now that's working out well. Regular transit, regular bus, absolutely not. First of all, I don't think she would be able to navigate it well, and our closest bus route is sitting in front of a truck stop, some seating motels, and there is no way I would let her sit there and wait for a bus, even if she could navigate. So that's what we have available to us. So our challenge is, again, were the timeframes. Trying to think what else was on my slide.
Well, this is what I
here we
really
go.
wanted to show. I think if you look at where
we are.
Melanie and Emma live, you can see the bus route, but then you can see all the area
And the
that
next
has
picture
no
really shows it, yeah.
there's no transportation options, and I
Our
just
bus,
thought,
yeah, our bus routes end at 7 o'clock at night. So if anybody wanted to work 3 to 11, figure out a way home, or 11 to 7 at night, figure out a way to get there. We have like one main bus, there's like a Philly and Wilmington line, but to go through ours, it was really difficult to figure out on the website, like to actually like download a schedule. So you can see that, and if you can get to the next one, and also the buses through Office on Aging, 8:30 to 5, like they're there getting the buses at 8:30 and they have to be back in at 5 p.m. So that really limits, like Emma works from either 4 to 7 or 5 to 7, so if I was relying on even that wouldn't work for us for her work schedule. That last picture I have though really shows, and can you just click in the middle here? This shows the bus route, right? We live about here.
I think it's just,
Okay, well,
yeah.
anyway, just picture this. So this is part of Salem County. It rolls around like this, down here. People in Quinton, like the co-chair, Amy Kiger, her son can't get access link. It's within 3/4 of a mile of the bus route. People in Alloway can't get it. And also I put some statistics up here. We have 11.4% disabled under the age of 65 in Salem County. National average is 8.7. So we have a higher level of disability in our county, even though our numbers might be smaller, our disability percentage is higher. We have total employer establishments, just a bit over 1,100 employers, where if you see Gloucester County, which is right here, and if you see Cumberland County right here, Gloucester has over 6,200 employers. Cumberland has 2,700 employers, more than double and more than triple what we have. We are so close to these counties, depending on where you live, but no access to these jobs. So as you can see, you know, this leaves a lot of space for no access. So I just wanted to show you, you know, we're fortunate because we have family and friends that are supporting us right now, but there's a lot of people that can't get any kind of access to go anywhere, except for the Scoot Bus, which will go out into these areas. But, and I don't know if you can get to the next one, some of the solutions. I talked to somebody at our Scoot Office on Transportation, and she said, we're on waiting list for vehicles. They don't have enough vehicles, and they can't get them. So even though it's only from, you know, 8:30 to 5, they could service more people if they had more vehicles to service them. We need more access for these rural areas, more than 3/4 mile off the bus route, because we have a lot of open land. And the New Jersey Transit, we need more routes, longer running routes, and weekend routes, because they don't run on weekends either. So it's tough for people in Salem County to get employment, number one, and to get transportation to employment if they could cross over county lines, which are, you know, it's really not that far, but too far if you don't have a vehicle. So that's our story, and
Thank you.
that's how we are down in our little county.
So what I think is just so powerful about these stories is it not only illustrates the challenges, but people can see the solutions. And that's what we want to be part of, is the solutions. So with that, I'm turning it over to Steve.
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay.
Full disclaimer, I am not a professional presenter, so I have no. So good morning, I'm Namecca Parker. I am the General Manager of Access Link. I have been with New Jersey Transit since February 2000. Started out as a outsource or temp reservationist and have had 7 or 8 other positions. I won't bore you with the long journey to where I am now, but so 10 years in rail, communications, and heavy paratransit. Let's see. You want me to wait for the slides?
It kind of does.
Okay. Next slide, please.
Yes.
So I'm gonna keep it really short because I want to make sure we have time for Steve and a bunch of questions if we have some. I'll give a brief overview of Access Link. I think most people are familiar, but it's a lot of misinformation about like what the rules are and how you use it, and that's kind of what we've been working on like the past 2 or 3 years, trying to get the information out, not just to the customers, but to their support network. So the employers, you know, like if there's a way you can kind of not have the office open at 5 a.m. knowing that bus service starts at 8. That would be helpful. Just those kind of things. So we've been having a lot of conversations with the community, with different stakeholders, and again, not just customers. So like this year, we'll be having targeted information sessions and discussions with groups like this, planning committees, different organizations, just because we found that for every one professional or advocate that we educate, they really do a great job of helping the customer navigate New Jersey. So while we connect these dots and fill in some of these gaps, I think knowing how to use what's available, which I love the stories, love the feedback and the insight. But yeah, if big bus doesn't do it, little bus doesn't do it, you know, sorry. I'll also be talking about the new pilot that we launched. Is still very new. When I say very new, I mean it's less than a month old. We started on May 10th. And I'll be talking about some of the other pilots. We love that word pilot. It gives us freedom, so to speak, to try things. And if it doesn't work, adjust instead of just killing it. So pilot, you'll hear that a lot. Some projects, some interesting projects that we're working on, and a couple policy changes that we'll be implementing this year. So we're trying to do 10 years worth of work in about 24 months. No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. Yeah, and we'll be talking about some upcoming events. So a lot of outreach, virtually, in person, we're trying to just cast a wide net. So, and New Jersey and beyond. So New Jersey Transit Access Link. So I'll just keep on going as if the slide is catching up with me. So, you know, Access Link was created in 1993. I'll just now slide beat me to the race, but Access Link was created in 1993. That's 3 years after the Americans with Disabilities Act. I got there in 2000, so they already had some stuff going, right? Hold on 1 second. Back up here. I want to make sure. So we do shadow the local fixed route bus, 3/4 of a mile. We get that question a lot. Why can't you do more? Every 2 to 3 years, we crunch the numbers, and those numbers are terrifying. So I don't know if anybody joins the board committee meetings, but they give a lot of information. It's a lot of information on the website. So for Access Link Paratransit, we subsidize every customer at about, lowest I've seen is $55, highest I've seen is about $80. So to do one Access Link trip can cost us anywhere from $70 to $90, and they're paying $1.45. as the base fare, because we did not go up on our fares when fixed route did. So fixed route, they're charging $1.60 as the base. We're giving you a 9 to 10% discount right off the top. So it's very expensive. So when fixed route adjusts their routes, we're trying to catch up. But the thought of expanding it that even a quarter of a mile is a really huge investment, huge. And we try to keep the fares low as we can. And I mean like low as discount as we can. So you have to be certified to use Access Link. A lot of benefits come from that certification. So we try to encourage people who don't currently live by a bus route to still apply, because you can use that in other states. You don't have to now go through the hassle of calling their certification department, going through the process of applying. You can just call them up and say, I'm a certified Access Link customer, I use paratransit, here's my credentials, I'll be in your state, your neck of the woods for this amount of time, and they give you your visitor status. We try to encourage people to use it, apply, also because they get a reduced fare card. So you get a 50% discount when and if you want to use fixed route. So we're taking a trip to the city, we're going to go see a play, we're going to try the train. Now you don't have to pay the full price of it. So there are other benefits to using it and being certified. The fare, again, is comparable to local fixed route bus. We operate origin to destination. You hear some different terms like door to door, curb to curb. So the driver, in certain cases, will escort the person to the door. That, for us, is a reasonable modification. So it's very unique to the customer. We service the services for people with disabilities. We get the question of, I'm 70 years old, give me a certification, what are you doing? It's not tethered to your age. It's really about your ability to use the local fixed route bus. We're a small little group, with 8 little tiny departments. We service 6 regions of New Jersey, that's 18 of the 21 counties. And we, right now, have 2 providers that we work with. So, slide number 4. I'm happy I put those page numbers up there. So in early April, we sent out an enrollment form, right? Customers are like, what the heck is this? What are you trying to get me to sign up for? What are you trying to sell me? What we were doing was trying to be proactive and get an idea of how many people would be interested in us being their direct connect to Uber and Lyft. Because, people are like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? So-and-so state is doing this. Why aren't you doing this? And we're like, we live in New Jersey. You know how many regulations there are to working with these particular types of companies? So we're still jumping through hoops, still having conversations, still, talking to multiple levels of regulation. And the pilot is only 3 weeks old. So we're like literally fighting for this pilot to keep going so we can expand it. We began testing the pilot program of us working with Uber and Lyft to start in April, I think it was. So we only started in Region 2 and 5, so that's South Jersey and North Jersey. Region 5 is Essex County, Somerset, Morris, Union, biggest region. They do about 2,000 trips a day. And then Region 2 is our next biggest region, and that's Camden County, Burlington, all the counties you pointing out on the map. Pointing out on the map. And they do probably about 1,200, 1,300 trips a day. So pretty big, pretty bustling. Customers, they have to opt in. So we can't just say, oh, we'll send you one, because you might not want it. So they have to opt in, they have to agree to let these other providers call them, because up until that point, we have been the only point of contact for our customers. And they had to rip that out of our hands. Like we were protecting that access to the customers. But what we found is that doing that was a hindrance to this pilot. So having the customer have to come through us as a gatekeeper to get information and have the provider come through us, the customers are like, oh yeah, I already use Uber and Lyft. So now you're telling me I can get an Uber and Lyft at $1.45 rate? Thank you, sign me up. So we got a pretty good turnout. So to date, I think we have over 2,600 customers enrolled. And as of yesterday, we performed about 7,800 trips, and that's just in the short amount of time that we ran this pilot. So we had to keep adjusting our plans. We had this beautiful picture of how we were gonna start partnering with these TNCs and then move to phase 2 and grow the grow the network, and then move on to phase 3 and have this wonderful Rider's Choice program. But, you know, the paperwork, paper jam, state agency life kind of shuffled those things around. So what you see here is we partner with the TNCs, and then while we're trying to grow this pilot, we've already started the Rider's Choice program. So what does that mean? Does that mean I get to call Uber and Lyft directly and get a trip? No, because we know customers have their own Uber and Lyft accounts, but for us to be able to give you that price right now, you have to come through Access Link. So the Rider's Choice happens at the point of reservation. Every single reservation, the customer is going to be asked, if we have to send your trip to a TNC, which one do you prefer? So the choices right now are Uber, Lyft, or either. Still waiting to hear if either is a viable choice, but it seems like a choice to me. Chicken or beef, I want both. Like, it just seemed like it made sense to me. But I don't work at the FTA, so we're waiting to see. And the other reason we thought either would be a good choice for our customers, because we know a lot of them don't have any experience with either rideshare. Like, they've never used the service, a lot of the customers. So the thought of making them pick one or the other without that experience, it just seemed a little ridiculous. Like, you want the bus, light rail, or train? I don't know. I've never used any, so let me try them, and then I'll be able to make an informed decision. So every reservation, we let us know. What we've been finding, you know, because we always have these wonderful plans, they're really clean, really simple, is that it's trip, it's by trip, it's very specific to the customer and what they are doing. So for some of the customers, they'll take the Uber and Lyft when they have something that's very appointment driven. You know, I'm going to the doctor, I need to be there at this time or else, because now the doctors have penalties for not being there, but you have to wait in the lobby for free, but the doctors have penalties. But when they go grocery shopping, I want the bus. You know, I don't want to have to take all my groceries out of this cart, put it in the trunk, fumble around. I want to just get on, you secure it, and we go. So we've been finding a lot of interesting use cases for Uber, Lyft versus Access Link. Let's see. Next slide, please. I love having up this thing. That's okay. So for some people who, because we use the term TNC, a lot of acronyms, what it is just a ride sharing company, a ride hailing company, like your Ubers and Lyft. But there are a lot of other companies that we are in talks with, and I'll touch on those a little later. So the private sector providers have been successfully partnering with organizations like New Jersey Transit, some of the county providers, but it's been a nationwide thing. Like, it's not specific to us. We're kind of late to the game on this one, which is not unique to us either. So they help provide an optimal ride experience. These trips are direct to your location. So while we're waiting to make our service Access Link appointment-based, the customer will be able to pick a requested pickup time or a requested drop-off time, not both. You can't tell me, pick me up at 7 and I have to be there at 7:10. No, but you can say, I have to be there at 9 a.m. and we'll let you know, calculating, what time the system is saying you need to leave. So it's either or, requested pickup time or requested drop-off time. We're working on that. That should be probably this fall when we'll be updating our system to be able to offer that. And that's been something that customers have been, requesting for a long time. Other thing is, they also minimize onboard time because, like I said, it's pick up, it's drop off. There's no sharing, it's a direct ride, and you don't have to book a ride through Uber or Lyft. What we do is, you book your trip through Access Link like regular, and we have 4 ways to do that. Reservationist, app, online, digital reservation form. It goes to the provider just like any other time, and then you have identified that you're okay with us sending your trip to Uber or Lyft, and then they'll take that trip, send it to Uber or Lyft, you'll get a notification. They do way more notifications than we do, so we do the night before, we do the day of, like the imminent arrival, and those are your 2 ways we notify you. You can track our bus and things like that, but they do, I think it's about 4. So the customers, specifically the ones with visual impairments, have been asking to help us test it and make sure that what we're doing is working for them. We set up a lot of test trips for the Federation for the Blind, Commission for the Blind, and a couple other groups. They said that those extra notifications have really, really been helpful. So I think I even got some feedback that the electric vehicles are gonna be problematic. So we're trying to make sure we add some extra notifications when we start testing those out. I already gave the stat about, how many trips and all of that. So we are on slide number 6. So we created a few resources that I will happily share. She's like, hurry up, get to it. I will happily share, with everybody. They're on the website, but I'll send them to Leslie said, like, hurry up and change. So we created some resources that kind of explains a little more about the program, how it works, what it is, and it's also accompanied with a frequently asked question document. So all the questions that we got from all the customers about, what about this? What about that? How do I opt out? How do I notify this? What if I lose something? Like 3 pages of just question and answers that we think kind of captures all those concerns that we got since we even spoke it out loud. Like, hey, we might be partnered with Uber and Lyft. What do you think? Don't do that. That's ridiculous. Why would you do that? And then as we kept mentioning it, people kind of were like, maybe I would take an Uber or Lyft over being late. Like, so we just kept mentioning it while we were working on it. Most people really just wanted to know, who is this program for? And how does it work? Basically, those were like the big ticket item questions. So what we kind of say and what we kind of suggest is that that's your choice if you think this program is up to you. So we don't steer any particular customer toward or away this program. We've been talking to different, what we call group locations or day programs and organizations, because we brought the people who were going to be providing the service to the conversation to answer some of these questions. The thought of putting your son or daughter in a vehicle with a stranger was like terrifying. I mean, like they really, you could see the anxiety just thinking about, who is this person that has my loved one in this vehicle? And are you watching? What about, they access everything. I mean, from cameras, GPS, safety, awareness, a lot of questions. So those documents that we created really have all of that in there. Again, we try to make it as inclusive as possible. So we have what I call my flip phone family. They will not give up that flip phone. So while we were designing this, we kept that in mind. So I have somebody who is, they are fierce advocates, they are super smart, and they are not giving up that flip phone. So you put all of that together, and I don't need your phone to be smart. I just need it to be a phone. That is the basics of it. You just need to have a cell phone that can receive text messages. You don't even have to send them. We just need to send them to you so you can say, oh, my driver is on his way. His name is Paul. He's in a Honda. Here's the license plate. He'll be here in 2 minutes. Like, we just need to be able to send you information. And once he gets there, you're at a different interest. He can call you and say, hey, I'm over here at the such and such interest. Where are you at? So I can, come pick you up. We're supporting the customers as they determine if this works for them or not. So that's the way we kind of offer it. We recommend that everybody actually read the document. So normally we create all this wonderful material and we send it out with all the answers, And people might read the first page, they might read the second page, but they definitely don't get to the end part. But in this situation, we want people to make an informed decision. These are not paratransit operators. I love the fact that with this program, the customers really gained the appreciation for our drivers, and what they do and how they care for them and that connection that they build with them. So it's been really nice to kind of get way more accommodations for the accident operators. Hold on. Okay. Let's see. So we recommend that people read the documents. And if they have questions, we always say, when in doubt, reach out. Customer service, they are helping people fill out the enrollment form. They are answering all the questions. And if they don't have the answers, they kick it up to us and we talk it out and fix it. So again, it's very new. So what is different? What will change? Again, we're hoping to improve customer experience. That feeling of not having a shared ride for every trip, going straight to where you're supposed to go to, being able to get a service like Uber and Lyft at the rate that you're getting it. The communications from the new providers, like we are not the only person that will be giving you information. That's really new, and that definitely was a huge change for a lot of customers. We sent the trip to Uber, and they were like on the website looking for the trip, and we were like, oh, it's out of our system, but we can track it, but it won't be in there the same way it was. So it's a lot of differences for some of the customers who are definitely used to like their routine and what they do. Improved on-time performance, right? That was the easy one. And reduced ride time. So instead of sharing a ride in this efficient route on the way to where you're going, it's pick up, it's drop off. Right now for the pilot, we're waiving the fare because we really want to encourage customers who are a little on the fence about it to try it. And if you don't like it, let us know and we will remove that little label off of your file. We'll never send you one again until you change your mind and you say, you know what, I want to try it again. You can opt back in just as fast as you opted out. It's very fluid in that way. So what won't change? Call center folks, they will still be there from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day, and even overnight. So if something's going on after hours, you call, they call you right back. Customer service, they're still there as a resource. So any questions, any incidents, accidents, issues, lost and found, anything, they're still there. Accommodations and support, we got a lot of questions about that. Again, the drivers they still have rules and regulations that they need to follow. They are not our drivers though. So that is a huge difference. Initially when we started, that first week we got a couple of feedback comments about the driver didn't get out. The driver did not get out of the car and fold up my cart. We were like, yeah, he's not going to. And if you really do need that, you need to just stay over here with us, and we will keep doing that. The driver didn't get out to get my fare. He's not gonna collect fare. We're waiving it right now. So, and then when we start collecting fare, he's not gonna do that either then. So there are some differences. And for people who really have a routine and that expectation of their driver, because we hear that a lot when the customers call about accommodations, my driver is great. My driver takes care of me. My driver made sure. We're like, you're a person? Where was my driver today? He was on vacation. So that is definitely different. Our expectations of the operators really taking care of our customers, that has not changed. And we had an incident where the driver arrived and then for whatever reason decided, you know what, I don't want to do this trip. Problem. So that driver no longer works with us. Like, this was your first Uber trip for us. I think it was Uber, it might have been Lyft, but your first trip with one of our customers and your last one in 2 minutes. So they were able to call another driver. He was there in 3 minutes, but that we can't have. So will stuff like that happen? Yes. You know, but I think the way we handle those things is really what's going to make or break this pilot actually being successful. So the reservation process, still the same. You can call, email, mobile app, online. We will be asking that one question of what's your preference? And then the cost of the ride, same for now. We're waiving the fare, but the price of it is still the same. So if your trip was $1.45 trip, still cost you $1.45. And the service area, we're not changing the service area just yet. We got that question right off the, oh great, now you can take me all the way to, not yet. So we're still in the first attempt at doing this. We're trying to learn from the county providers who are already doing this and, you know, seeing some success. So this is another pilot that we are working on. It's called the virtual assistant, right? So we're giving our customers to Ubers and Lyfts, and now we have them talking to machines. This is, but I promise I am not crazy. Well, you know, like, but when I first started in the role of like assistant general manager and GM, it was a lot of, no, our customers, they don't want that. They won't use that. They don't like that. Oh, that's too difficult. So thinking about just really who we're designing this stuff for has been really helpful. And bringing the customer in on the conversation from the start, not after we design it and already pumped a lot of money into it, and then we say, what do you think? And they say, I hate it. And then we're like, they don't appreciate anything. So we start out talking about it. Start out talking about why you think this won't work. So this is just a regular IVR design, right? You call, you're talking to the machine, you're pressing 1 or 2, and then it takes you to some menu, questions, person, and if you need it, they'll send you to an agent. So it's not really that drastically different for us with this IVR, but what is hugely different is it uses artificial intelligence. Ooh, right, scary. So what we found is that our customers like talking to people. They like calling us. We take almost from 1.5 million, sometimes almost 2 million calls a year. So we had technology, we've been rolling it out, like, here you go. They're like, yeah, so 973-491-4224. Okay, so we took that as, we need to get you something better for our technology. So this is really simple. You talk to the machine, it does what you want. You don't want to talk to the machine, it sends you to a person. So right now, we're only testing it out with status and cancel. It's really, really simple. We started testing it out in December of last year. We worked with our, what we call spotter program. It's like the ghost shopper. You know, they're riding the bus incognito, writing down things. Oh, he didn't greet me. Oh, he didn't secure this. Oh, did he look over at the MDT, the GPS while, you know, like all of those things. So we have a really intricate program that we use to kind of make sure what we think is happening is actually happening. And when it's not, why? And how fast can you fix it? So that was our first group that we used. Then we started working with a small group of customers. And then we rolled it out in March. We're working on now, we're working on now the second part of that pilot, which is reservations. So we want the customer not to have to hold on for 5, 6, 10, 20 minutes to be able to make a 2-minute reservation. So we're talking about those quick, I need a ride to work, home, 9, 5, you know, go. So here's some preliminary stats on the status and cancel. So yeah, we take about 89,000 calls a month. That's like a low month for us. Right now, ride status and cancel. So yeah, they get in the queue, they start talking to the virtual assistant right away. Just in this short amount of time, we've been able to kind of automate about 12,000, 13,000 calls a month. Well, I'm sorry, a week. And the CSAT, that means customer satisfaction score. So at the end of it, you know, they ask, how was your experience? How would you rate this experience? And we've been doing pretty well. About 45% resolution rate. And that's from a group of customers that are adamant about not replacing people. So I take that as success. 45% does not look glamorous to a lot, but Our customers care about those agents so much that technology really is more emotional than practical. Like the response to it is, so how many people are you trying to replace? I'm like, nobody. I'm just trying to give you options. I'm trying to give you different ways that you can get what you need if you don't want to hold on, if you don't want to talk to somebody, or if you don't need to talk to somebody. So, and then, yeah, the callers, about 68% have scored it pretty high. And this is compared to our old IVR, which we barely got 9% usage out of. So that's why these numbers are really helpful, I'll say. So again, what changed? We're hoping and we're guessing from the feedback was the experience. So our old IVR, it was a little more clunky. It was very prompt, put tap, 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 no voice interaction. And it was, I won't say, that's all I'll say. The reduced hold time. So the customer, if they want to use the virtual assistant, it's pretty quick, it's really easy. 2 to 3 minutes tops is what we've been seeing on average. And we're just trying to enhance the self-service menu. So again, it's not, we're trying to replace people because they're going to call us, so we know. What will not change? So we're not changing the availability of the agents. We're not changing the hours. These are pilots. We're trying to really make sure these are useful, helpful, sustainable. So nothing like that. And then accommodations and the support, like we're still there. So if somebody wants to try it and they want to learn about it, it's really easy to use, but if people have questions about, I tried to do this, it didn't work, we're there. We call it customer service, our tech support group. What I like about this program or that pilot, this phone thing, is that it's really inclusive. One example, we haven't turned on the other language feature yet, but the English feature, you can, over 400 ways that it'll recognize yes. So it recognizes tone and intent. So and they take those as responses. And we were thinking about that when we were thinking about our customers, because a lot of them do have challenges communicating sometimes, but they still want to be involved with the the technology. So I'm just gonna keep going. We're on Broadway.
You got 47 seconds.
I don't know
He's
what's
running
going on.
marathons.
I can't cancel anything here.
Uh-oh,
Doesn't say anything.
I'm sorry, virtual people.
Is it a touch screen?
There's a new way to do things.
Hello? Look, I probably not thought you touched it. She's been doing really great over here, I'm telling you, it's
We're dying. Are you kidding?
So, last slide are, well, that's not the last slide, but last thing I wanna kind of shamelessly plug are upcoming events. So here's some of those upcoming events. We are updating our no-show policy that is happening right now. We started sending out those new letters with the new policy this week. What is the new policy? Before we had 1, 2, 3, you're out. That was regardless of if you were taking 4 trips a month or 40. 1, 2, 3, you're out. It's very simple. We understood it, and we were told no, percentage. It needs to be a percentage of your rides that we consider. So for the person only traveling 4 times a month, that one missed ride was a huge percentage. I'm taking 40 trips, back and forth to work, blah, 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 running errands, me missing 1 trip. So that is the new policy basically, and is a progressive discipline. So instead of 1, 2, 3, I think it's about 5 different steps where we give you a, hey, would you please stop missing these rides that you schedule? And it's a, hey, if you don't stop missing these rides, something's gonna happen. And then, then it's like 1 day, 3, and something, like that. So we're having an information session at the end of June to kind of talk about what this policy is, how will this work? When do I get notified? When do I get suspended? How do I fight these atrocious lies? I was there. What are you talking about? The appeal process and kind of what that looks like. The next thing we'll be working on is upgrading our maps with those bus routes. So you might have heard that Transit just added all this weekend service to about 8 different bus lines. we want to make sure that is in our system, you know. New buses, so we are looking at a new fleet, new buses, trying to make sure that what we're using is really impactful and helping. And now that we are being kind of pushed to restructure our whole program, we are looking at what vehicles we would need. So CDL licenses in New Jersey have gotten an extra layer of complication added to them. So we're really trying to pivot and adapt and incorporate that in our purchasing. And then this week, we'll be talking about best practices pilot. We're looking for groups that we can send to Steve and his group to receive best practices training. We are trying to connect the dots, and I think that's like a nice, clean way to translate all the heavy lift of what we're trying to do. We're trying to match and knock down silos and funds, you know, that's the biggest one. You can use your money for this, not that. So, yeah. And then August, we have our customer forums, first ones that we have since 2019. And NJT rewards, you earn rewards and points as you ride, similar to what the other modes have. And lastly, contact information.
I'll send it to everyone.
Yep. So, thank you, thank you. And of course, last but not least, Steve Cook.
Where's the best place to stand?
Right here, yeah, right there.
So I have a lot of slides, which means I'm gonna be giving Kyoko a lot. Let's go to the next one, let's go to the next one. But before we do, we give Kyoko a round of applause.
I see her with her hands in her, oh my God.
I can't believe this, but you're doing a fantastic job. My name is Steve Cook. I'm the executive director of the ARC of Mercer County. So my footprint's kind of like Central Jersey for what we do for our services in general. I've been CEO for about 16 years. And I'm up here talking about transportation because of some things that we've done. But by way of background, I actually worked for the New Jersey Department of Transportation for many years. My background is civil engineering, actually. So problem solving for transportation is a natural thing to start looking at as an organization. And I like to look at problem solving for other things other than transportation. So I want to give a big shout out to Paul, because my connection to this group is really deep, because Paul always finds a way to talk to me about something and see what we're doing and encourage us as a provider of services for DDD and DVR to really think outside the box. And you're very encouraging, and the whole group here is, and I really applaud you for your leadership, and Mercedes and everybody here who takes on your regional leadership. We're very appreciative of the feedback. Also, Paul, congratulations on 5 years. I was there when you started. You have really taken an incredible ownership of representing people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the state of New Jersey and nationally. You've gotten not only the governor's ear, legislator ears, provider ears, but really made families feel heard over these 5 years. And that was you being everywhere. I mean, I don't need to read your report to know you're at all the meetings, you are one-on-one, group meetings, representation, the important things, and thank you for doing that for 5 years and also being part of the transportation conversation. And I just want to move over here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with respect to all of the advocates that spoke today, and Bob, I hope you advocate forever, because all of you represent exactly why we do this. And your presentations actually really bring to light something that's really important. And I think Namecca, who I've worked with this pilot, and as she assumed the role of leadership of Access Link, which is not an easy job to have, is they, has taken it with a real sense of ownership and innovation that I've seen firsthand. So I really want you to know that when it comes to these kind of partnerships for solutions, Namecca and her team, I've worked with a lot of them, are incredible partners from a provider perspective, okay? Now that being said, Paul really hit a very strong point, as everybody has, but I want to point this out. there are a tremendous amount of resources that are placed into transportation. DDD puts millions into buying vehicles and training staff and reimbursement rates and stuff. DVR, so the casino fund, reimburses it. Access Link has a tremendous amount of money. You heard the per trip cost that Access Link is putting up, $60 to $90 per trip. There is no shortage of resources. But with groups like this and advocates, the thing you want to pay attention to is who is talking about the innovation to take those resources and realize no one solution is the solution. When you talk about New Jersey Transit needs new bus routes and Access Link needs a wider, area from the quarter mile. Well, there are other things to consider that even if they went to 2 miles, they still don't cover 3 counties. So where's the solution? There aren't any bus routes there. New Jersey Transit can't run a bus route everywhere, and quite honestly, that's not always the solution for everybody. Uber and Lyft are extremely innovative approaches. However, the point being drivers. Our county paratransit does a fantastic job partnering with us. We actually merged trips they were doing for us, and we took them on so that they could do other trips. It was building capacity. The first day we took it over, the story was someone who was taking the county paratransit, their parent called me up, and I thought, oh boy, first day, you're gonna have problems everywhere, right? The only call I got was this parent saying, I wanna tell you something. My child took trade for years, and they were great, but whenever my child had a behavioral issue, the driver would pull over and call me from work, and I'd have to find out where they were, drive out there and pick up my child. That was the solution. The driver wasn't trained. And for the first time ever, I was at work, my child had a behavioral, and the only thing I got was a phone call saying, don't worry about it. My drivers took care of it, and this is what we did, and here's what happened, and they're home. We're just letting you know what happened. Well, that's because you have a trained driver on a safe vehicle. That doesn't mean the paratransit wasn't an option for most. Doesn't mean Access Link is an option, but they aren't always there for everybody in every county. Some counties don't have it. So why am I saying this? I believe there are a tremendous amount of resources that are available for transportation, but leadership from advocates, families, and leaders like Paul, and people who actually run the operations like Namecca, and hopefully after this presentation, you will help me to work with Namecca to take these kind of best practices to help providers become more connected to the delivery system. When I first started as CEO, DVR and DVD had funding sources. I had people who lived in the same group home who had to take 2 separate vans to programs within the same county, that if I could keep them on the same van, we would have cut their travel time in half. But DVD's budget office said, well, you can't mingle those funds. Why? The minute we went to fee for service, that wasn't an issue. Boom, I had a lot more options, right? The idea of being able to use Uber and Lyft. There are limitations for Medicaid funding to be able to use that in some of the areas, right? Or doing tips. How can't we not figure this out to make it simple, or getting exact change, right? How long was that an issue, right? These are simple things that require this level to come down and support people like Namecca, who wants to make common sense decisions, right? And as far as artificial intelligence on phones, you may think it's crazy. Ark Mercer is actually working with the mayor of Trenton on artificial intelligence of the drivers, automated drivers. Now you're gonna go, are you crazy? Nobody's gonna want to put their child on an automated bus. But we're actually working with Princeton University in Trenton. It's one of the first national looks at this, because if someone doesn't take the time.
Sorry, the camera's right behind me, so when you move in front of us.
Oh, over here?
Yeah.
You can move me where you need to.
Yeah.
I'm
Just
sorry,
yank me.
technology giving me a really hard time today, so I'm not gonna share the screen because virtual attendees
Okay.
have your presentation slides. In-person attendees, there is a presentation, a printed copy on your table.
No worries. And so if you were ever to put one slide up, if that's even at all possible? Okay, this slide would be the one to put up, if you want to try to get that up. So here is the point that I'm making. As advocates and leaders, you have people who are willing to try innovative things, but we need your support. Like Namecca said, at the end of this, The things that I'm doing in my agency aren't gonna solve all your problems. But here's something you probably don't know. Many of those $60 to $90 trips that we're talking about from Access Link in their limited areas are subscription trips that are engaged for support of day program, DVR funded and DVD funded. Those trips become very expensive for Access Link when agencies like myself can provide them. They just don't have the training and the best practices and support to set themselves up to do it. So think about this. If 30 or 40% of the subscription trips from Access Link are from agencies exactly like me, and I can work to take them off so that they can build capacity for those one-off trips to medical appointments and stuff, well, that makes the system stronger. And imagine an agency like me up in one of those 3 counties that are not covered.
Right.
So part of the legislation that we've worked on, and this pilot will develop, and Access Link has already started this, are regional transportation planning groups. So why were they in there? They're in there because Access Link is not the only solution. So imagine we train providers like myself to be able to do what we did here, and I'll go through it, to do it in a region where there is no Access Link, and they become your contact. So when Bob needs that trip and Access Link doesn't exist, you don't have to put up on their Access Link, expand your area, build new bus route. It's not feasibly, fiscally possible, but you can train providers who have vans that we've already invested in, drivers that are available, even potential Uber. We nicknamed our next phase of this Arc Uber, to be able to provide drivers. We were going to partner with Lyft to be able to get on their access so that you can get a trained driver with a vehicle you knew you could trust. But you could get it to an Uber type thing. And then how do we pay for it? These are interesting questions, but the money's there. We just got to figure that piece out. So making a provider viable helps Access Link take off that burden, which is a very large share of trips that they do. But you have to do it in partnership with them. It's not a competition. It's actually a benefit for them to be able to provide even more capacity. That's what we did in Mercer County. But in areas where Access Link doesn't exist, we can take providers and make them a viable resource for those capacity building trips, but use those models that we're talking about. So what did we do at ARC? About, I'm gonna say like 5 years before COVID, so about 1996 or so, we got a grant from New Jersey Transit to talk about transportation. And originally it was to improve maintenance between nonprofits. It didn't quite work out. It was really not enough money to build a garage and centralize it, and it just wasn't about coordination. And so we talked to Transit, what else? And they said, hey, what else would you like to work on? We said, well, let's talk about improving how we do transportation as a provider. And so that started a 5-year pilot to look at how we coordinate between our group homes and our day programs for transportation and our bus routing, and how we actually coordinate the routing. And when we started looking at this, there's a couple of things we found. So we brought in 3 different consultants. The first consultant basically asked us what's the problem, wrote up a report, and told me what I told them and charged me $5,000. The second consultant, I said, don't do that. Here's everything we got from the first consultant, tell me how to fix it. They said, well, we got to talk to your staff. And all they did was come back with my staff's ideas and charged me $5,000. By the third consultant, I learned, and we just dropped them after they really clearly said, we don't know what to do. You have a unique delivery system. Schools have a different delivery system. One-off on demand, medical appointments, they're all different. We have a unique opportunity with assets and resources. Group homes don't coordinate with day programs. My group home residents are my people, and they're the only ones I drive. Well, wait a minute, that van is half empty. What about people in the community who need a trip? What about connecting that? I've got trained people who know how to work with them. Why can't we pull this together and make it work? Well, there were a lot of considerations on that. So that's culture. And culture starts from the top. That's the CEO saying, I understand what you're doing. That's what this pilot's all about. It's about getting the CEO to say, this is a culture shift. You have to bring your director of residential with the finance, with the day program, and say, cut it out. We're gonna work together. but most people can't visualize it. So this pilot actually encourages organizations to commit to sitting with the ARC Mercer and looking at what we did and replicating it. That was the first part, culture. Now I needed technology for routing. Their school buses didn't work, medical appointments. So you know what we did? We went to Princeton University, we had a professor there, and we partnered with him, and we developed with my incredible team, Mike Courtney and Justin Arroyo, my transportation team. We put together a relationship to develop our own software for routing. It is specialized to work only in our field. That's why this pilot is geared towards DVD and DVR type agencies, because there are certain agencies, not everyone, not every agency can fully do what we did, but many of them can. Hundreds of them have day program and residential that could overlap. So we're looking for those in the pilot to find them. Then we sit with them and say, look, we did it, sit with my team, your team, let's get to yes. But then it was the technology. So we developed our own technology. We're still improving upon it, but it involves communication with families. So the call-out policy, we are much more strict than Namecca is. It's not a percentage, it's 1, 2, 3, and you're out. Warning, suspension for 1 day, suspension for a week. In 5 years, my team, 5 years, has suspended 2 families for 1 day. That's it. It doesn't happen. But it isn't penalty, it's benefit. Do you know how much time is wasted when a van pulls up and that person's not going, and you blow the horn and blow the horn? Everybody else is sitting on that vehicle, or someone's waiting somewhere else. When you talk to the families and you say, we gotta be efficient, they get it. It's about their loved one. We're all team players, but you gotta create that culture where the families are part of that solution and communicating. So we developed that communication system to overlap with the technology so that every morning the family gets a text. Do you need a ride, yes or no? Well, thank you. No, you scoop me over.
Actually, if you could
Do-
just kind of face that way.
Face that way.
People could see.
So,
They can see
sorry
it,
gang.
yeah.
So actually a DSP from a group home has the route that they're gonna take for those in the residence, but also who they're gonna pick up. We designed this. The family gets a notification. If they say no, the dispatcher, Justin or Eris, will take them off the route and the DSP doesn't have to do anything. It's already set. It's amazing. But in it, that driver also knows who that person is, has the contact information of the family, has the background if there's any medical issues. It's about who we're taking care of to get them where they need to go. And taking people off if you don't need them or adding them. This technology took us years to develop, but the results have been incredible and have allowed us to route people directly from the home to pick them up, to take them not just to the hub, because we had a hub and spoke model. The hub is that big day program. Well, what do we all want? We want our loved ones to be, if you're going to art, I don't want it in a big building like this. I want you to go to an art center and have art, or go to a flower shop, or go do landscaping. So we take them directly there, but it took us time to be able to build these routes and train people and change the culture. My organization is unionized. I'm telling my union staff in the field, guess what, you're gonna do this all different. You think that was easy? But you know what sold them on it? At first, like, we want an extra $1 an hour, we want this and that. You know what sold them on it? Because we have awesome people who work in this field. I call them mission critical, my frontline staff. They told me about the time savings. Don't you want the people in your group home to be the care people you care about every day, to not be on a vehicle for 1.5 to 2 hours? And we got them down to 30 minutes and we showed it to them. You know what they said? We're done. Never asked for a penny or anything. They're in. Now, technology is hard. A lot of our DSPs aren't really quite as good with technology, but that's training. So you'll see for me, training and culture are the key parts for what I do. Now, is my solution gonna solve Bob's problem? Probably not. But if I build the capacity, I may be able to provide a trip for you separately from this by taking my substantial resources and investing them in a culture and a technology-driven entity, or I'm taking the trips off Namecca so she can do it for you. Okay, that's the point that we're making here. So I don't know if you were able to find that one slide or not.
Yes.
So what we did was design a system whereby the DSPs are part of the solution. Everybody's a driver and every vehicle is part of transportation. That's a mind shift for everybody. And everybody's part of the solution. Namecca is not responsible for everybody's trip to this room, and neither is New Jersey Transit. Legally, she can't be. Financially, it'd be not feasible. But we have the resources that the government has committed. We just need the advocacy to redesign those things, like, can we do tips? Can we, create those efficiencies that allow her customer service to focus on the difficult problems while people have their simple problems done through artificial intelligence or remote things. That's where we need your help. I need your help to take these resources and use it to build better transportation models in areas where they're not, and help them with trips that they're doing that we can do as providers. So some of the outcomes, I'm gonna do it verbally. So we have a nice chart that's it's on page 9 at the top, impacts of key metrics. So in 2015, when we first started, we did something that I bet you, if you're involved with a provider, you ask them these questions. What's the average time your rider spends on a vehicle? What is your average number of accidents and severity? What's your cost per mile? We didn't have that answer. I can tell you they don't have the answer. It would be almost unbelievable for me if 10% of providers you're associated with could even answer that question. So first is understanding, we were up to 2 hours because we went to the hub and then out to the spoke. Okay, that's why it's 2 hours. Typically, it's an hour-and-a-half trip for everybody in New Jersey. And I think we pointed that out from your examples. We had 20 accidents in 2015 with a total insurance loss of $127,000. The severity index is $6,350 per accident. Our mileage cost was $2.50. Now compare that to $60 or $90 per trip. We have different standards than they do. That's why there's a higher cost. But there is the potential for revenue being allocated in a way that it puts more capacity out there. In 2017, I engaged my residential department to pick up other people. Yes, it wasn't easy, but we did it. Culture. So we got it down to 95 minutes, still doing hub and spoke, but accidents plummeted to 3. Those 3 had the same severity of 6,300, we measured it, but our per mile cost went to 192. So on 2019, we eliminated the hub. Through the routing software and communication with families, we took them from their start to their actual enclave where they were gonna go. This is not easy. This is not easy, especially when you're taking people on and off the route. I have dedicated routing people, and they helped create the software. We got the average trip down to 30 minutes. 30 minutes from an industry average of an hour-and-a-half. 2 accidents that year, and the severity was half as much. The year before that, we had no accidents and no losses. And our cost per mile went down to $1.35 because you're driving from point A to point B. You're driving from point A to point B. It's cheaper to do that. And so our capacity increased. So you're looking at safety metrics for families, quality of life metrics for the person who's taken the trip. And there are financial benefits to this. And so I now have a newer fleet. I have better training programs. And I'm investing money into these pilot programs. After transit, that grant, we were 50% in that grant. But here's an interesting dynamic. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to pull this up, Kyoko, but if you take a look at this slide here on page 12. So our agency, like many agencies, as I mentioned, relies on Access Link to do trips for us at that high rate. And they're fantastic because they don't say no. If they are required to do the trip, they will do it. But they get the value of what I'm going to show you in this chart, or at least talk to you about this one.
What page?
It's page 12, the bottom chart. And if you take a look at that, our agency did 13 people through Access Link. That was 5,720 trips a year. And we did it at $36 a trip. $36 a trip. We're talking double now. And that saved them $200 and some thousand in 1 year because we became efficient and didn't need them. Now, Transit invested $207,000 in a grant with us. And now we're saving that amount every year going forward, and it's actually twice that amount. There was one other agency in our county, they probably wouldn't be able to do this themselves, but they asked us if we could help them. They had 17 people in Mercer County taking trips exclusively through Access Link. Think about the resources that we then can put into the infrastructure. And quite honestly, our travel time is probably shorter. And our drivers are trained. Now, transit drivers are trained, but going to Uber and Lyft, you may not see that. Although some people could completely do that and be safe and comfortable. The reason why I say that is when we develop these pilots in counties and regions where Access Link is involved, and this legislation will allow us to do that, you can relieve Access Link of those many, many trips while building the capacity of the provider to be innovative. For the one-off trips, for the complicated trips, to go across borders in counties to form relationships, or maybe the provider there. So these regional meetings are 100% about transportation. Everybody in that region isn't going to be the ARC Mercer, but I can guarantee you every region has at least 2 or 3 ARC Mercers that we could train, and they get together through the auspices of this legislation and New Jersey Transit to talk about how do I build the system in your region? And you're at the table. I hope you're there, Bob.
Can you wrap up in 5 minutes, because we
Yes.
need room for Q&A, and we've got
Yes.
a lot of Q's coming through.
Oh, okay, so I wanted to point that out, and the only thing, and I can't do it through the slides, but it's in here, I want to point out. So we presented these findings pre-COVID in 2020, and Senator Sweeney at the time, Senate President, said, I want solutions, I want to put out money. And he proposed legislation for $6 million that Governor Murphy signed to allow New Jersey Transit to develop best practices, to develop these kind of things for agencies like us to be able to pilot this and see if it works. We did this in Middlesex County with Easter Seals. Post-COVID, they lost their transportation provider and said, ARC Mercer, what can you do for us? We went up there and did this for them. I can tell you their average trip was an hour and a half. We got into 32 minutes. We saved them money in 2 ways. One, we were cheaper than the provider, but 2, the provider was actually charging the consumers an extra $4 a day, which I don't think was legal, but they were doing it to be able to pay for it. When they went away, we eliminated that. So the consumers each save $880 a year. They get to their job an hour sooner and come home an hour sooner. They save 2 hours a day plus $880, and the agency didn't pay a penny more. And the parents are ecstatic. My CFO's dentist, his son goes to that program, and she's like, aren't you with ARC Mercer? My kid is happy, no more behaviorals, gets on, how did you do that? It's like teamwork. It can be done. All I want to wrap up with is, we have a great partnership through this legislation. I'm so appreciative of Senator Sweeney for recognizing this and for the governor for embracing this. I'm very deeply appreciative for New Jersey Transit seeing the value in this and promoting these pilots. We are looking for 6 pilot agencies. We are asking every potential provider. So if you know providers, ask them if they've applied for this. Because even if they don't get the original pilot, they're in queue to be part of the conversation and see what's going on. So these 6 pilots, 1 in each region, to see if we can replicate this and start that spark, not to replace, not to be, but to be part of that solution, to take those resources, mingle them in with Access Link and other providers and county paratransits to have a team solution. My presentation today is, we're part of the solution, we are not the solution. It is a culture shift. It is reallocating the money with thoughtful relationships and the technology that we developed and the best practices. Using our example to convince other CEOs and teams, we did it. We're showing you we did it. We've replicated it. You can be part of the solution in your region. Just take that leap. So with that,
Can I just start with questions, because the model that you're presenting makes so much sense. I mean, why wouldn't people want to use the vehicles that are sitting in their parking lot all day? What is your ideal partner? You're looking for 6 pilot partners. What does your ideal partner look like?
Well, my ideal partner is Namecca. The pilot is actually being run, and the selection process is through Namecca. I can tell you that the ideal would be someone that maybe has day programs, DVR, residential, and some real interest in actually doing
Is
this.
there a minimum number of vehicles that they, no, if the model will work with whatever, okay, okay.
And I don't know if you want to add to that, Namecca, we have a deadline for the pilot application. I just want to throw this out because I want you to advocate with providers you know. Paul, get them to apply. But
I mean, the information, we'll send it out to everyone, because we want people to join, even if you're not a provider, come get the information. It's on June 8th, it'll be at 10 a.m. It's virtual, but we put the bar really low. We've been in business for at least 5 years, because we want to account for those pandemic years, because some people didn't survive the pandemic and are in operation. Few vehicles, willingness is the most thing that we're looking for, willingness to try and help build something. That's pretty much it.
And how will we be sending this information out for the June 8th pilot information
Oh, it's out.
session?
We put out a press release. We have it on the nj.gov website.
I think it was on my presentation too.
Send it out again.
Well,
Just
there's
the
a
link of the
record.
registration and
All right, you'll send
So
it to us, we can
it's
put it out.
pilot information. This is an information
Yes.
session
Yes,
for
I just wasn't
encourage any provider you're involved with just to come in and talk. It's June 8th at 10 a.m.
It's just,
That's the information session, when's the application deadline?
Namecca, I know they adjusted it a bit for after that, but she'll pull that up.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
okay,
Have you ever reached out to like the other arcs of different counties?
So Middlesex, we've already got a design of a pilot, and actually someone in Benson is putting in a special appropriation outside of this pilot because we cover Mercer and Middlesex. So he wanted to do that, he really loved it. Monmouth we've met with, we can cut their transportation costs in half. We did, because they use private vendors. So Sal is actually coming down next week, so he loves it. Hunterdon, Ocean. The hard part is for them to have the infrastructure of someone to help do it, and it does cost money. Remember, Transit gave me $207,000, I matched it, but then they saved $200,000 a year afterwards. There are investments of technology, training, my staff is amazing. Mike and Justin work their tails off, but they also work, and we're doing this in addition. And Transit's been great kind of understanding how we're doing this, but we're gonna make this pilot work with these 6 agencies. The ARCs have been really good. NJACP, Val Sellers has promoted it. I have 2 or 3 agencies there that are very interested, and ABCD, Kathy Chin, also. They've all had this presentation, they love it, they're sharing the pilot request. So I've worked really hard to try to explain to people, this isn't the panacea for everything, but for those families and self-advocates that really want to advocate, transit is not the solution, they're part of the solution. They can't be because of their limitations in law, but they can leverage our relationships as a group.
So the application will be released and available June 8th. It's open to the public until mid-July, so we're giving about 6 weeks, and if someone's like, oh, wait, we can adjust, because we really want to try to make sure we get everyone who's interested. We're gonna talk, and we come up with a weighted scorecard, because we want the ARC Mercer to take the lead on selecting the ideal group. So the way we kind of figured, you guys, 50% of your score is what was really, really important. The regional councils, about 35%, DHS, about 10, because less transportation heavy, but we want this pilot to be led by ARC Mercer. And then us, we're willing to work with anybody, so we gave ourselves a measly 5%. Because,
It shows a
we're there, we're willing to be there and support. Like, we've been doing a lot of planning and, working with Steve and local programs and the councils. So about 6 weeks for the application, but if we see that we need more time, we can adjust that timeline. So, just wanted to add that part.
Yeah,
Scott, sorry.
Mika and Steve, thank you so much. I live in Hunterdon County. I think it's one of the 2 that you probably don't service. or one of the three. So I would love to engage at some point offline to talk about how we can work in what capacity and in what ways we can build some transportation systems out in Hunterdon. We have the link, which is the county service, but it has all the limitations that we've heard about, the challenges of time and actual routes that are really challenging, especially as you go out to Milford and some of the deeper parts of Hunterdon County. So I would welcome having the conversations because everything's led to dead ends and it's been incredibly frustrating.
So just to add, it's not an access link area, but it will be covered kind of by the pilot.
Okay.
I will tell you, we've talked to Arc of Hunterdon, we started exchanging information. Jeff had retired and Colleen, who's fantastic, came on board. Call her to say, hey, you know what, I heard this presentation, what are you doing with Steve on transportation? It'll just prompt, but come to the table with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll talk through, you know, moving that pilot forward. It may not be through transit, but
Sure.
ARCs and all the other issues. We're doing the best we can to really even do a cursory review or start that. But the regional council, Namecca Transit's running, get involved with that. I know there are appointments, but listen in, but get Colleen.
Okay.
Well, she's actually on the regional council,
Yeah.
so definitely reach out and get her, because we're trying to do the same thing that Steve is doing, like deputizing the people that show up and have them really connect to the community, because if you don't know what the need is, it's hard to plan for it. So that's really, we want to try to at least hear what you need, and then if there's a way to incorporate it in what we're working on, that would be great, and if not the first whack at it, the next one, you know, so that's the goal.
But it sounds like we can still apply to get certified.
Oh, get in.
But aside from that, just have her, we exchanged some data, and with the transition, just, you know what, you put it on to the top of the pile. Just call her up and say, hey, heard a great thing, can we have a meeting, do whatever, I'll be there.
Mercedes?
Yeah, so Namecca, for you, so options are great, and I'm really excited about the pilot. My question is around Uber and Lyft, you know, what is the driver training? Is there any general information that's going out to drivers in that network? And then accessibility, how are they managing, you know, maybe wheelchairs or people who have other mobility devices, walkers, canes, et cetera?
Okay, so the first one is, that information is in the resources. They do, yeah, so we talk about what they have to do to just even be a TNC license in New Jersey, because again, New Jersey has some extra boxes to check outside of other states, which is really interesting. So they do get disability training, accessibility training at a surface level. That's why I keep pointing out, they're not our paratransit drivers who have hours and hours and hours dedicated to this and support in that. So it's really different. The question about mobility issues. So Uber and Lyft is where we started. That's definitely not where we're ending. We are in talks with several service providers that have a wheelchair accessible fleet. And they will, so that's why we're encouraging all the customers to enroll now, so we can kind of get an idea of how many customers are interested and then what the needs are. So we have, we're a few weeks away from like making a few more announcements as far as expanding and inclusion and new providers and things like that. Definitely, if anybody's interested, I would definitely enroll, tell us what your need is, and that'll help our plans to be very comprehensive.
But accessibility is not a feature within the Uber and Lyft fleet?
Not as much as we would like it to be, I'll say that, because there are some providers that have bigger cars and wheelchair accessible, but definitely not at the levels that we would need to have, yeah.
Anyone else in the room?
So I said what Mercedes said, just having options
Right.
in all of our counties is really important. So I have a couple questions. One, because my daughter's, I'm on the board of her day program, and transportation, like a transportation service is something that they would love to have in the future and, you know, as soon as possible, if they possibly can. How many vehicles and what types of vehicles are you using per however many riders? Just to kind of like ballpark to get started capacity wise?
So, I actually have a slide on all that.
I do, okay.
So if you take a look at page 3, the top slide, so we today have about 100 vehicles, and they range from cars to vans, to wheelchair accessible vans, to 22 passenger buses, and then wheelchair accessible passengers.
Because I know they have like 3 different locations where they have day programs, 3 different counties, and they have some buses, some like SUVs, things like that. So, that they're set up that they could get started, with options to expand. Also, my other question is, I know when my daughter first started taking Access Link, the first couple of days until she was used to it, her brother, I would follow behind in my car, her brother would be her passenger. He was able to ride for free to escort her to work until she got used to the system. Does your system in Mercer County do the same thing? Like, can you have a companion rider?
So primarily in our organization, what we have built out on phase 1 are folks that are going to our day program or employment. So they're within the network of services we provide. Easter Seals, when we did it for them in Middlesex, it was the same thing. It was their folks exclusively. Phase 2, we nicknamed ARC Uber. So I think Paul said, my best ideas are when I steal from other people. That's why we create. So there's an app out of Chicago Heights. I saw it at an art conference. So they built it where volunteers could go on, get screened and everything, and screen their vehicles, and they can sign up for availability to be able to do trips. We also had community-based support staff that didn't have stuff scheduled, that they could be assigned to become drivers using our vehicles. Now I know they're trained, I know it's my vehicle, and then we were gonna make it available like an app. And we actually got halfway through a conversation with Lyft to become their handicap accessible provider. Then Uber faltered and Lyft dropped everything and went for their business and did not do anything special. So we may talk to Namecca about becoming like the ARC Uber for that area to be able to provide those trips. As far as accessibility for others to ride with them, we have nurses and stuff that ride with them and other. So, but you got to remember, our transportation department, they're super highly trained. They know what they're doing. But this ARC Uber model that we nicknamed, probably get sued for using that, but that's to create that more flexible kind of thing. And of course, we would have people share that with them, but that's phase 2.
And then my last question is, would you be willing to share, and I'm sure at a cost, your software? The scheduling and
So that software is developed through this vendor, and we actually pay him per trip. It's actually we've compared it to the cost of other entities, and it's actually really affordable. So that'll be something that separately would be available through, like ARC of Middlesex. They've looked at what they have for routing, which wasn't much. It's actually a paper roster, I think. And so we've made it so it's easy to use per trip and then integrated, and actually has a vehicle maintenance component. So no paper logs and stuff. You actually put it right into the app when you're driving, and then it goes right to the maintenance department. And so that will be available, but not required. Like if someone has their own system, what we do still is a culture thing. And there may be components like communication with families that they're not getting from the other software. So we've tried to make it compartmentalized in what people need, but not mandatory.
Okay.
We have questions from the Zoom.
We do.
And I know there's one behind you too. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm behind you.
No,
I
I apologize.
One of the, we live in Morris County. My son actually, his day program is in a different county, and so one of the problems we found with transportation was no one wants to cross counties.
Right.
Like, even if you're sitting on a county line, basically, and the store is next 2 blocks, not that far. But if you're a mile away from a county line, most services will cross counties. Now, we did do Access Link for a while. It had some pros and cons. We are currently using private transportation for my son. So we hired a DDD provider to transport him to day program every day. But it is literally $154 a day for them to drive him back and forth.
Oh,
That's 2 days. That's 1 day, $154.
really?
So $75 a trip
Oh,
to get him from one place to another. And we maxed out his entire DDD budget just on transportation. And we still don't have enough money for 5 days a week, so I private pay 2 days. I pay the agency twice, 2 days a week out of my own budget, which is insane. It's over $1,000 a month, so it costs a lot. We're solving it by hopefully moving his group home closer to where his day program is, because the reality is we found an amazing day program that just suits him to the D, and we don't want to change that. Like, that's not an option, but it's taking us over a year to get him into a new group home. So in the meantime, we've just decided to just.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, it's just that we have 10 minutes and then people are like zoomed in. Kathy?
Did you want to respond to
Well,
that?
I did want to say, my corporate cousins, the local program folks would cringe at hearing you say that, because I know the counties are obligated to go, they have a buffer zone of 5 miles. So something like that, I would probably circle back around.
Yeah, we found that after COVID, they're just saying no. We called all the local
I'll
towns,
follow up with
and
you
it was
after.
just flat no.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you after.
The questions that we have here, we have just two, pointing out that, and I think you did, Namecca, give us some solutions that are coming for this, but the very long hold time for the certification department, that they've left a message and they have been unable to get a call back for over a month. Is there any recourse? Is there any place else to go?
If they can we get that person's information, and I can have someone reach out to them instead of trying to have them take another crack at it.
And then we have a mom asking, is there any way Uber and Lyft can allow for the same driver for the customer all the time, just so that there's some continuity? And
yeah, their platform is not designed.
Their platform is not designed to do that, okay. Gabrielle, can you just once again say the service that was used for Lily?
Attain and gain?
Attain and Gain was the service used for Lily. And that also worked through Lily's budget, is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct, okay.
Talk to your support coordinator.
Yes, talk to your support coordinator. Let me just move down here. Let me go down here. Is the Rider's Choice program still limited to 3/4 of a mile?
We are still piloting it in our service area that we have currently. Yes.
So it's still being piloted, just in case you didn't hear that, I'm just repeating the answer, still being piloted in the same area. And actually the question was just answered, is Uber and Lyft, is the pilot available to powered wheelchair users? So again, we just asked.
And I do want to add one point to that. So we're encouraging everyone to enroll. So what happens is, regardless of who provides your trip for that day, we waive the fare so if you enrolled in the program and you use a scooter, you're riding with Access Link that day and you still ride for free, so.
Okay, so, and then Amy just asked her question. This next one I think is a more personal question. And then there's someone asking, Robert Jackson is asking, how can we connect services like the ARC model with New Jersey Transit? It sounds like you are
connected. That's the whole intention.
That's the whole intention, service to communities where there isn't any transit or paratransit services, but that sounds like that's where
we might find an agency like the ARC of Warren, and I'm not specifically saying an ARC, but an agency that has the infrastructure, build them out, and then they can do trips and support the other agencies there, and maybe create like that ARC Uber model if it didn't exist for the accessibility issues.
Okay, and then I think you answered how to become part of the pilot, Amy. I think that was your.
And we'll be posting that connection, hopefully, if you can give us that.
Yeah, I'll email you all the documents.
Thank you.
Is there going to be a partnership between NJIT and Access Link and ARC Mercer that impacts the group home consumer?
We don't know.
That impacts the group home consumer. But to get a little more clarity.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be.
New Jersey Institute of Technology.
New Jersey Transit.
Oh.
Why the Institute of Technology is involved in this?
They're smart.
Why, yes.
I'm not opposed to that.
I'm just, didn't hear about their name.
Yeah, I'd love to get a little clarification on what that is from whoever asked that, because.
So Peter Armour, if you could give us a little more clarification on that, that would be great. Some parts of Somerset County are not within the access link area. How do residents with disabilities access transportation? So again, I think at the moment, I don't know if anybody has a really great answer for that. They're certainly making.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Sure. Some parts of Somerset County are not within the access link area. How do residents with disabilities access transportation in those parts of Somerset County?
So Somerset Arc is another one. They have a new CEO up there. So again, we started talking to them. Is creating a strong provider support like an ARC can pick up the pieces where Access Link isn't. That's why I said Access Link is a partner, but not the solution. But the regional council in that legislation, that $6 million legislation, you can partner and work together to find and fill in those gaps.
Is it worth reaching out to Somerset County Paratransit with a?
Oh, we have it, yeah.
No, for
this individual,
Oh,
yes, I would say so.
It's worth
Yeah, they're good.
we've got a resource list that we're sending out and making them available, so just reach out to your region. Or
So
we'll
there will
post
be
it.
a resource list
Okay.
coming.
Okay.
Sorry if I missed this, are Uber and Lyft drivers required to go through the Boxer Center training and rules of working under DDD? No, they are not.
That's why you can go Medicaid for it.
Yeah.
Bob has a
Steve,
question.
should the Uber and Lyft drivers be told that if they went the service and so they could be covered by DDD or Medicaid?
So, and I'm gonna follow up with Namecca on that pilot because this is new for all of us. And I think if we can do a carve out, Bob, where they're kind of on this list of Lyft and Uber drivers that are certified with Medicaid, it can be a different business model for Lyft and Uber to actually do it direct.
Yeah.
And not just for Access Link areas, but for areas that Access Link doesn't cover, replicate what they're doing. But we have to build that relationship. Lyft will listen to transit because they're the.
I will add to that, outside of that, to talk about expanding the areas that are served. We are actively talking to a host of state agencies who give funding for transportation to try to figure out a not as complicated way, because I don't want to say simple, but not as complicated way to have those funds in our system so that they can start using their transportation funds with Access Link. So if you come through Access Link, you'll be able to get Uber, Lyft, and these other providers we're working with. So as a way to not try to change the business model of these private companies, but still give the customers the flexibility of using their transportation funds, how they see fit. So we're working on it.
There is somebody here who's just looking for transportation for their individual, but just to confirm, Access Link does run in both Colonia and Edison. So okay.
Is there more questions? Because I'd like to ask a few questions.
I think you can go right ahead. Some of the other ones have been addressed.
Mika, I think I heard you say that the plan is to expand Uber and Lyft for outside the current Access Link network? Or?
So that is something that is like on the wish list of things, because we see other state agencies use it like that. Like so in Washington DC, they use their partnerships with Uber and these local taxi companies to actually expand their service area, and a couple of other places. So that is something that we're looking to do, because these are cost-saving measures. So we can kind of figure out what the sweet spot is of usage, and then take that money and be able to expand service. That would be great, but that is not on our list of things to kind of do right away.
But having people signing up for Access Link will provide you some data.
Right.
Okay.
So we want to take it from just a pilot that we're doing in regions 2 and 5, and eventually have it run all over the state. So.
Okay, and a question for Steve. You've got 150,000 passenger trips a year and 1,000 consumers, and I think There's another number here, but you've got 2 full-time transportation employees.
So I have a director of transportation, Mike Courtney.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Justin Arroyo, our manager, who's also the lead router, and then Eris, who is also a router. So I have
Okay.
the 2 routers.
So you are generating enough revenue to pay for the operation and for those 2 staff people.
Yes, so one of the things that's really important here, and I said this in the beginning, most agencies don't even know what they spend. So if you saw on my chart, I'm spending $2 and some cents a mile, and now I'm spending $1.35. It isn't about someone paying me, it's about what I'm already paying out for transportation and realizing those savings are coming back to my budget over time. That's part of what we do with them when we do an assessment. Here's your real cost, here's what your costs will be afterwards. So while I do services for other entities because I've become efficient and have more capacity, agencies may just want to streamline themselves and put that money into a better fleet or whatever. So there is an investment in routing and all that, but you don't have to hire a router, so we sublet it and that can generate revenue for the other projects we do. But that's part of what we do is, this is what you're really paying today, and you're not short on money, you're just spending it in ways that you're not even aware of, and this is more efficient. So it's worked for us. I mean, my transportation department generates excess revenue that we use to help pay for things like working on these pilots and stuff. Scott, I think you had a question.
Yeah, question. So big ideas, right, Steve? I love it. I love the innovation. I think in the state, we tend to think and look at things in silos of need. And I'm wondering, in parallel to that, given the density and the population in New Jersey and the crunch on housing right now, what conversations are happening in the challenging world of home rule in New Jersey of looking at things from a community planning perspective as opposed to housing, transportation, all these different buckets that are all interrelated, whether you're a senior, you're disabled, you're a family moving in that wants restaurants and other things, to get planning boards to start talking about sort of these robust models of crazy ideas like monorail systems, or how do we use electronic transportation in new ways and innovative ways for New Jersey to be a leader, whether it's driverless vehicles, the driverless buses that you're talking about. Like, where is that kind of like real crazy idea, big idea stuff happening in the context of this compressed state with so many pressing demands, where the north part of the state is beyond the middle and the south, and we have these equity issues across the state, to build some kind of master view of, you know, whether it's a European model or something, that we know these things exist. And why don't we just look at that? Because when you get to the cost per ride, which you've done a great job on, imagine what you can do if you leverage that when you build communities that support all of that in a way that helps people live a healthy life.
Tamika's jumping up and down.
Yeah, no, because that is literally what we've been doing over the past 3 years. So I have taken this show on the road, so to speak. I have been at so many conferences involved with research. I mean, all those things that you just mentioned. And I've been lucky enough to be invited to the table, to these planning advisory boards, and helping with these coordinated transportation plans, and working with Rutgers and all these wonderful people I met, because I'm a keyboard jockey. So when we go outside, you know, we're like, ooh, what's going on out here? There's a lot of interesting things going on. So we, like I said, we've taken the motto of we're more than transportation very seriously. So we are doing exactly what you're mentioning. We're looking to see what other people are doing, what made that successful. Do we have that here? And if not, what do we need to do to get it? So he is definitely giving you guys solid advice. It starts from this level. It starts from really getting people involved with the decision, getting them connected to decision makers. So please, 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 you know, take all this information you guys heard today and run with it. Reach out. If you have a question about why can't we do something, ask that question. Because a lot of times it's not that we can't, it's that we just don't. So we are here with you, sir. We have a lot, like I said, we're trying to do years worth of improvement this year because we are trying to get ready for the next version of what transportation looks like, so. I
just want to add real quick, Scott, because it's for everybody. These regional councils are transportation regional councils. Find your council, get involved.
We'll send you
because
the information.
That's where the
we'll
big
send
picture stuff comes
Yeah,
in,
we'll
Scott.
send you the directory of who's on each council, which counties they represent or organizations. It's a 12 different groups are on each council, so you have 6 of those. And it covers everything from seniors to people with disabilities, county, New Jersey Transit. It's really a comprehensive group of people, which is why we kind of, if you look at the best practices phases, we did the regional councils first. We were supposed to do that in phase 3, but we needed their input on everything else that we were creating. Like, why would I create something and then confer with you? So we looked at it, we knew we might get our hand popped, but did it anyway, assembled the councils early, and we've been in contact with them. I know they're like, okay, hurry up, these quarterly meetings are killing me, but we needed them to give us feedback on what they think their region needs. So, New Jersey Transit, we cover the whole state, and we look at it from a bird's eye view, but we know that these conversations need to happen locally. So that's what those councils are.
How do we keep track of how this transportation model is going, how this pilot?
You invite me back next year. Paul knows how to get me, right? I'm sorry about this last one, but.
No, we'll see more than once a year, but, no, I guess we just keep in touch with you.
I am always available. I love going out and talking about this. If you can't tell, this excites me.
Transit nerds unite.
Can I get one more in? No.
All right, we're gonna stretch it, 2 more, one online and then Paul Bobstein.
Okay, I think some of this you have discussed, but let's just reiterate. What is being done to reduce access link wait times, and is Attain and Gain or any other DDD vendor working to offer wheelchair accessible service vehicles?
Wait time where? Where are we waiting? Are we waiting on the phone? Are we waiting on the bus?
I'm gonna just say both for now.
Okay, so the telephone, again, we are the biggest call center in New Jersey Transit. We have TIC, but I think we take twice as many calls, so that, to try to staff that group is super difficult to say the least. But we're working on it. We're trying to create other ways for customers to get us. We just need to keep pushing that information out. So again, outreach will be ramped up. So we'll be putting out press releases about different information sessions, just general Q&A sessions, because customers, the information is there, but the difficulty of getting it seems to be another barrier. And what was the last question about the?
Is Attain and Gain or any other DDD vendor working to offer wheelchair accessible services to vehicles? Wheelchair accessible services to vehicles.
Well, we don't have a shortage of vehicles, so is that for?
Well, I think that's part of what we were talking about, expanding the network of maybe through that Uber and Lyft to have non-Uber Lyft providers that are specializing in it. And I'm gonna talk to them. The brokerage person's coming on.
And Kathy,
I'm gonna bring it up.
Kathy, the
Yes.
Attain and Gain, they're just a DDD provider service. They don't operate vehicles. It's through them that Uber and Lyft get paid. So you order Uber and Lyft like you usually do. Yeah, because my slides didn't work. You order Uber and Lyft as you usually do. And instead of having your credit card charged, you have the vendor being paid. The Attain and Gain is the source of the funding.
It's their access to vehicles that are accessible. That's what we have to build out, that network. And that may not be through Uber and Lyft, but an Uber and Lyft model. So what we designed, people signing up, you could get the same driver, you could request the same driver.
And through Attain and Gains, through the system that my daughter used, it was the general Uber and Lyft drivers.
And they're not necessarily.
They're not necessarily, but they have to follow state rules and regulations about, identifying themselves as an Uber or Lyft driver, but it's using the same transportation for Uber and Lyft that anybody else uses.
Right.
So it's not one of these special networks.
This is just simple comment / question. Sometimes part of the solution is very, very simple. I can recall, I've been in this building many, many times, the Middlesex County Human Services Advisory Council meets here, and as neighborhoods develop, patterns of transportation need to change. I can recall one instance where we were involved with as the Human Services Advisory Council, we became aware that where rental housing had been built, there were quite a few people with disabilities living in that rental housing. And the simple solution was to go to New Jersey Transit. It took a while to get them to alter a bus route so that the bus went by this development of multiple dwelling unit buildings. But it's very, very difficult. I mean, we have the advantage of the contacts of the HAC, the political contacts. It can be very difficult to figure out how do you make that case and how do you make New Jersey Transit aware that the neighborhood demographics have changed and you need to consider changing the routes of the buses.
I mean, we get that a lot. One of the planning committees I was on had a chance to talk to developers, employers, community partners and things like that. And I had to ask this stupid question of why not have that piece solidified before we finish, finalizing other things. And one of the construction owners was a little ticked off and was like, we do that. We reach out to transit years in advance to let them know the plan. And, so I go ask the question internally. It's slow and steady. It's really a lot of development in Jersey. It's hard to keep up with, like even with the maps. You'll drive past a street or a vacant lot one day, and then you drive past 2 weeks later, it's a whole sprawling, bustling thing going on. So it's hard to keep up with the pace of change. It's just, we just have to keep doing it. We just have to keep the energy up to try. So I think as these conversations develop, that will be more streamlined. But that definitely is it's a pinch point, it's a friction, a real bottleneck. You're trying to develop housing because you need housing, densely populated. But trying to keep up with the other pieces of support, transportation, employment, it's hard. So.
Okay, we are past 12 now, and we had scheduled this for 12. We are reconvening. This afternoon session was really focused on the organization and communication and coordination amongst ourselves. Folks on the chairs, if you're not a chair, if you co-chair, whatever, you can still come, but we really are going to direct our session this afternoon to strengthening our organization, okay? So we'll see you again. Are we breaking for lunch? And we'll come back. What time do you think? About an hour at 1 o'clock? We can do it at 1 o'clock. Okay. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Really, I really appreciate your help, Steve. This was a good session. Okay.